Hello, and welcome to Sustainability in Motion podcast. We explore the fast-evolving world of sustainability, helping professionals understand how environmental, social, and governance, or ESG practices, are shaping business, finance, and the skills needed to thrive in a changing world. I'm your host, Maisuradze, founder of ED4S. In today's episode, we'll welcome back our advisor and instructor, thought leader, an author, and an entrepreneur, Nawar Alsaadi. If you have been following ED4S, you've already heard him before. He's the creator of our free, massive open course, ESG 9 Weeks, available on our website. And today with Nawar, we will discuss careers in sustainability. Hello, Nawar, and welcome back to our podcast.
Hi, Maria. It's a pleasure to be back, and to be back as a guest, that's a double pleasure.
Yes, well, I guess you don't need any introduction at Sustainability in Motion podcast. You've been with us many times in the past, but in today's episode, we're diving into something that I feel you have extensive expertise and different perspectives, and would like to talk about sustainability careers. What does it look like? What are the challenges? You've had many hats in sustainable finance and sustainability in general over the past years. So as we're recording this at the end of 2025, it's been a very interesting year in sustainability. Would like to get your perspective and see what the future holds for those working in sustainability. But let's get started by giving our listeners a little bit more of insight about your journey. How did you get into sustainability? What are different hats you wore, and how that experience unfolded for you?
Sure. I'll try to make it brief. I started about 15 years ago. First, I was an investor. I used to be a full-time investor. I was a value investor, and ultimately I moved into activist investing around 2010 or so. And around that period, when I say activist investing, I would take a position in companies that publicly traded and engage with their management team, or activate, if that's the word, around their corporate strategy and their corporate governance. And that engagement around corporate governance introduced me to the G in ESG, as it became very clear to me at the time that companies that have proper governance structures create more value, are more valuable for shareholders and other stakeholders. So that really got me intrigued into how non-financial factors like governance can impact the investment process. So that naturally pulled me into the other letters, the S and the E, for which I had also personal interests, whether it's the social side or obviously climate change and what's happening environmentally. So I would say and I'm going to really resume 10 years in 2 words, from 2010 to 2020, a lot of that was about integrating ESG in my work initially as an individual investor, and then as a fund manager, managing my own firm, small fund, and then ultimately engaging around these issues, and ultimately moving to the institutional side briefly around 2020, where I applied these concepts, be it stewardship or ESG integration, at a broader level with bigger companies and overseeing billions of dollars instead of $1 million of dollars. And I would say the last 3 years or so, once I left the institutional side, and we're happy to talk about why I left the institutional side, but the last 3 years, I moved to that intersection of what I call data/technology, sustainability, and finance or business. And I worked mostly on the advisory side, working with solution providers such as ED4S or other technology providers who are building solutions to solve for business challenges and investment challenges around sustainability. And then finally launched my own startup with my co-founder, Rich Monroe, Kanata Q, which is a marketplace for sustainability solutions and a market intelligence platform.
That's a really fascinating journey, Nawar. And I guess you started from governance, which means it's really seeing the financial impacts of the ESG factors on investments that you were analyzing and engaging with, which is often enough is not the way how finance professionals get to ESG, right? Often enough, it comes from some kind of a moral perspective or beliefs or need of the client. So it is interesting to see how you came from a governance and then discovered ENS on this journey. Amazing. So just out of curiosity, out of all these positions you had, you've been a founder, an activist, investor, portfolio manager. What was like the most exciting position that you had?
I still have a soft spot for activism. It's exciting because when you are playing that role, you're driving for change. You're driving for sometimes a change vis-a-vis an entity much bigger than yourself. So it has this kind of David and Goliath feeling to it. And I do enjoy that dynamic. But it's also about winning hearts and minds of people, other stakeholders, because you can't drive change of this scale by yourself. So it's almost like running a political campaign. I mean, if I was ever to go into politics, I could see the similarity there because you have to win other stakeholders and shareholders, and there was a lot of energy around it. And if you win, and obviously if your financial interest is aligned, if it's not just an external kind of activist campaign, but one in which you have a stake in the company, then you also get a financial return at the end of the day if you made the proper diagnosis. So it's multiple wins, intellectual wins and financial wins. So, but it's a very tough business to be in. So although I do have a soft spot for this part, it could be stressful and demanding. But you could really drive change at material change in companies. So we kind of balance the stresses with the benefits and the impacts.
Yeah. Well, that's a nice segue to the next question, actually, that I had for you. As the difficult business to have different roles in sustainability, one of the probably toughest ones is actually leading sustainability within large organizations. And that's where you do need to influence and use this political skills and different levers to try to convince, pursue, align people, educate as well. So could you tell me a little bit of the insights that you've gathered on this journey about what does it role look like? What are the biggest challenges, and maybe some insights for those that are trying to get into the role of sustainability?
Well, I think it's important at this point really to distinguish between these roles, because there's not a single role. There's a junior role and there's a senior role. There's a corporate role and there's an investment focused role, and there's a technology or an advisory role. So I think each one of these roles have its kind of unique challenges and opportunities. The area where I have not worked in is corporate sustainability, although I speak to a lot of CSOs and I'm very familiar with the role, but obviously I've not worn these shoes. But at a very high level, I mean, first, let me just classify the people who work in these different roles. So several years ago, I classified people who work in ESG into three groups. The first group is the ESG idealists. And these are people who believe sustainability and ESG will make the world a better place. It's really a vehicle for something else. It's beyond the business. It's to improve the world and society and focus on the non-financial through the power of the financial. The second group is the ESG capitalist, who perceive sustainability to be an incredible business opportunity. It's an opportunity to remake the world economy, and what that entails in terms of trillions of dollars of new investments and new companies and new opportunities and new projects. So they just come at this from a almost pure business standpoint that has a positive externality, but they're not driven by that positive externality. And then you have the third group, I would call the ESG agnostics, people who've worked in, maybe compliance or health and safety or legal, who got pulled under the ESG umbrella because the NAMA culture evolved over time. And they became ESG professionals, although that was not really their goal. So understanding these three groups has implications on how, or at least understanding where you fit into these three groups. If you are working in this field or looking to work in this field, that has implications on how you experience the role. Because if you're there to make the world a better place, you're going to have a very different conversation and different set of priorities for your job and in terms of your conversation with your colleagues and the way you communicate about sustainability vis-a-vis you're there to look at this and assess this as a business opportunity that attracts you to different roles, that gives you a different language, and that pushes you to find different tools and different interconnecting points between sustainability and business. And if you are an agnostic and you're just doing your role, you've been doing health and safety, honestly, we didn't really care one way or another. You're still going to do what you have to do to make sure that wherever you work, people are taken care of, they're safe, and they are taking care of their health, and obviously are protective and committed to the company where they work. So that's really a broad answer. I don't know if you want to dive in any one of these fields a bit more.
Yeah, well, that certainly makes sense. And I guess I'd classify you as ESG capitalist. That's pretty clear, right?
That's correct, and that's how I started as finding the connection point between value creation and governance and investing. I mean, that was what got me into ESG, and it has always colored my involvement in this field from this point, that this is about value creation through leveraging sustainability.
And 2025 was a difficult year for the idealists. I just want to share, maybe from my perspective, working with different chief sustainability officers or ESG teams, I do see a lot of individuals, particularly from engineering background, shifting into finance or corporate sustainability because they have come to a conclusion they can actually make a bigger difference by working where money is being allocated. And I feel this is a way of coming into the role with idealistic sustainability perspective. And I believe those individuals coming from a very, true moral-based approach, but having hit by the reality of, unfortunately, most of the large companies, it's all about quarterly returns, there's business objectives. And so there's misalignment, or rather maybe miscommunications between what the idealists are trying to push and what general capitalists are trying to achieve, right? Which makes it very, very difficult to be in that role and try to advance things when we're not talking about the same language, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I've seen it at the institutional side. There's always been tension between the ESG capitalist and the ESG idealists, between the idealists if they had the ESG department and other departments as well. But you kind of hinted quickly on this, Mary. I said in 2025, the ESG idealists have, had a hard year. I mean, I think that faction has been crushed completely. Part of it is the anti-ESG movement, which been pushing very hard against a lot of these kind of progressive themes that often kind of colors the ESG idealist view of the world. And also because companies have so many challenges, so many business challenges, that their priority is about business. They need to deal with tariff. They need to deal with changing technology and evolving geopolitical challenges. And they really don't have time, the interest, the focus on the non-financial side of sustainability. So they want returns. They want their sustainability programs to fuse with their strategies. And that has sidelined a lot of the ESG idealists, and which have either some of them maybe left the field or are forced to talk about it in a way maybe that doesn't really align with their values. So I would say that's a difficult mindset to be in 2025, and probably for a few more years to come.
This episode is brought to you by ED4S, the sustainability training solution designed for scalable workforce training. ED4S makes it easy to build, launch, and maintain time-efficient, role-specific sustainability training for your teams. Developed by industry experts and trusted by leading organizations worldwide, visit ed4s.org to download a free case study and see how ED4S can work for you.
So from your conversations, I'm just curious to know what makes a successful sustainability career? Like, given this, headwinds that we're experiencing in ESG, what do you need to have in place, or how should you even approach if you are trying to move sustainability internally, like thinking maybe about the companies you engaged with? What does the successful kind of recipe look like for somebody who wants to drive sustainability while competing with all the other things, right? Artificial intelligence, the geopolitics, the tariffs. So how do you actually move that agenda forward?
I would say a successful sustainability career, and that maybe some people will not like what I'm going to say, but I would say a successful sustainability career is going to be a successful business career. That will be the only sustainability career that is going to exist in the world as we, at least as I see it, for the foreseeable future. Which means if you want to succeed in your role as a sustainability professional, you have to be advancing the business priorities and the strategic priorities of your employer or your company. You cannot be pursuing what you would like to pursue from a grander vision or a double materiality vision. We're basically into a single materiality world. So I'll give you an example. I had a long discussion with the head of sustainability of one of the world's largest restaurant chains, over 30,000 restaurants around the world. And we're having coffee, and he said, look, I don't know what to focus on. I can focus on so many things. And people who work in this field, their response would be, yeah, but you do your materiality assessment, and the materiality assessment will tell you here, you do this, you do this. That doesn't work in the real world. In the real world is, what can I do that actually will yield actual results in the context of how the business is structured, what my colleagues are open to doing, the structure of choosing what makes the most environmental or social sense may not align with what is feasible for that company. So that's a difficult pill to swallow for those who want to achieve maximum impact. But I would say in this world, you can create a lot of impact if you really understand where the company is trying to go and try to achieve it through a sustainable solution, whether it's through a product, through implementation, through process or operations or people management. So I know this is a bit of a long answer, but it is really about doing more business sustainably. That's what a sustainable career would be, in my opinion.
Yeah, your answer actually reminds me of the paper that we wrote last year. Remember operationalizing sustainability?
Yes, absolutely. It couldn't be more timely, and I recommend everybody to read it, by the way.
Yeah, if you haven't read it, it is available in our resources section at ed4s.org. And basically what we did is we looked at different roles and positions and said, what is the primary goal of that position? If you're a financial advisor, you need to increase your assets under management. You need to attract more clients. And we try to integrate ESG on how can ESG actually help you do more of that and achieve your goals faster. So coming from understanding of what are the goals, because at the end of the day, unfortunately, in the system we are today, the goals are not exactly aligned with sustainability. But if we were to tilt a bit the current practices into a better version, we need to find how to integrate in today's roles the sustainability in a way that it actually makes sense for the business, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think one of the new things that are going to happen, maybe on the positive side, I don't think people will necessarily be seeking sustainability the way they used to seek sustainability back in 2020, 21, 22, where every other day I will get somebody asking me, how do I get into sustainability? What will happen is sustainability is going to insert itself into their roles, because it's just a sensible thing to do. I mean, if you're building a data center today and you need electricity, and you may be looking to renewable energy just because you need electricity and you need an efficient source and a reliable source and, a cheaper source than you could get it somewhere else. If you're managing your supply chain and because of all the tariffs and the geopolitical complexity, you start local sourcing, and which has all these sustainability benefits, but you're not doing it for that, but you're becoming a sustainability professional by virtue of the fact that you have to do it to run a better business. So I think that a lot of people might already be doing sustainability or will start to pursue sustainability without actually recognizing that what they're doing is actually pursuing a sustainable approach to running their business. So I think that will be understood better in the coming years.
Yeah, because of the embedding sustainability, right? Another thing that we've been talking about a lot.
Yeah.
So do you see that CSO role actually could still stay relevant? And I mean, obviously, we're not going to get to embedded sustainability where different departments do it as part of their job. But let's say in 5-10 years from now, when everybody kind of understood the business case for sustainability in their roles, is there still place for CSOs, Chief Sustainability Officers in the company? What do you think?
Yes. So it really depends on the maturity of that company in terms of their understanding of the relationship between sustainability and business. And a CSO in that role, in a mature role, will probably have an easier time justifying why they need to be there, why they need to coordinate the different, work with the different departments and help chart the way forward. I think in certain companies where sustainability was, tangential, or they never really integrated it in a material way, I mean, the CSO office may look like some kind of white elephant with nobody knows what this office does and why it's there, since it's not really integrated into business. So I think some CSO roles will be eliminated and some will be downgraded, maybe from the C-suite to something lower, and I'm already hearing about that. But I do think It's important to think about the CSO as well, and it continues to be to a large extent almost a change management role in many companies. But I also see it as like a maestro in an orchestra. Because sustainability is so interconnected in very different departments, you do need that nod, that nexus, that coordinate between the different departments and try to move them all in some direction by first understanding where they all are, connecting all these points. So I don't see that role disappearing, because I think it is still very relevant in that context, to the degree that it is facilitating what we just talked about, the grander strategy of the company. Whatever that strategy, to be a cost leader, a premium leader, a profit focus or revenue focused, to the degree that the CSO can show that they can accelerate these strategical goals, then they will always have a role. And I think they will enjoy that role, because, success in delivering in the company roles is usually rewarded, and the company goals usually rewarded.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because the systemic thinking, right, or translating between sustainability factors, business drivers, and just communicating across different departments, connecting it to a business strategy and profit drivers. Maybe CSO is just a chief strategy officer and not sustainability officer, because at the end of the day, it's a business sustainability in terms of financial sustainability, right? If you want to be still relevant, creating products that your customers buy, having license to operate, that you're not banned by those customers. At the end of the day, you do need to take that into consideration.
But yeah, I mean, I've always had this issue with sustainability. The sustainability is, in a way, nothing and everything. I mean, if you tell me today you want to go study sustainability, and I will say, I will tell you, like, what do I study? I mean, what do I study to be a sustainability professional? There's no such thing. I mean, you are either sustainable in the context of operations or finance or communication. There is no role that is pure sustainability. It is always lives within something else. So, there are people who go, and I've seen this often, they'll do environmental studies, become, scientists, environmental scientists, say, well, okay, that's, at least the E out of ESG, and I'm a professional environmentalist, and they walk into a company, have no clue what's going to go on and what they're going to apply this, or how they're going to apply this, because it applies to a very narrow type of tasks in the field for certain companies in certain contexts. So how do you do then sustainability across all the other departments that are not, related directly to the science? So that degree is not going to solve it for you. So you will have to have a broader understanding. Especially, we're talking, obviously in this podcast about the business side of sustainability, the finance side of sustainability. So you have to understand these things to be effective. I mean, there's just no way.
Yeah, well, it bugs me how aligned and agreeable we are on this podcast today. I wish we had a little bit more debate, but to be honest, today universities rolling out the sustainability programs, and a lot of young professionals are jumping on them because they feel it's a way to make a world a better place and work in sustainability. But what you're saying now is that we need to understand the business. The sustainability by itself is not, maybe if you want to work for United Nations, I don't know, or politics, but within a business environment, you do need to have a second angle, right? It's almost like access, sustainability compared to a role, department, maybe sector, but by itself, it's a little bit meaningless. And the power that you'll have will be limited if you don't understand those business realities.
So in business, and again, by the way, we're talking single materiality, we're talking business. So people who are listening to us, they have to understand that I'm not looking at this from the context that somebody who has such a deep scientific sustainability knowledge is going to go there and apply their knowledge extensively in the business. A lot of it is going to be surface level. And that's why we have to talk, it's out of the realm of this discussion, what's the role of government and society and overall. But if we stay within the business realm, if you asked me some years ago, I would have said, you can study in some environmental social studies degree and then do a business certificate so you can understand and translate and connect. That would be my advice at the time. But today, my advice for anybody wanting to go in this space, I would tell them, go do an MBA understand how businesses operate, and then do some kind of certificate, whether it's a CFA ESG or a Concordia University Sustainable Professional Certification degree or some SASB degree, so you can actually understand the other side, because business now take precedence. So that's the way I would position it. And that is going to give a lot of people pause who may not want to pursue a business career because they want to go do sustainability.
Yeah.
But that's the reality of it. You're not going to be able to do it in a company unless you actually have that mindset.
All right. So as we're wrapping up, and this is the last question for you, and I'm hoping we can end on a more positive note. I know this is not a question we prepared for, so it might catch you off guard, but I'm just curious, for those individuals, professionals, a bit like us, right, working sustainability for several years now, we're trying to move, the needle within the corporate world on sustainability, still have some kind of purpose-driven achievement goals when it comes to sustainability. It's been a tough year, cuts all across, sustainability sidetracks, regulation going down. What gives you hope for individuals like us? I know there's 3 years of bumpy ride given the geopolitics, but in the meantime, what should we be looking up for?
Well, what gives me hope is I think this industry is maturing and is evolving. And I think, 4 or 5 years ago, I think the conversation around sustainability and business was very simplistic, was very naive to a large degree. I think we're beyond that. I think sustainability professionals today can operate much more effectively in a business environment. I'm seeing the evolution of a lot of sustainability solution providers who are moving from the fluff and talking about value creation, launching solutions that are really integrating in business processes and facilitating business operations. And obviously, we didn't have time to talk about technology, but I think the fusion of technology professionals and arming them with technological tools to do their job, because I think one of the challenges sustainability professionals had for a long time in this area is lack of data and too much data. And how to manage all of this used to be a challenge because you always had small teams that were under-resourced. But what gives me hope is that now we have very powerful AI tools that can actually get the data for you, can help you analyze the data, and can enable you to do your job more effectively. So that gives me hope that the right sustainability professional with a business mindset and the right tool set can probably be far more effective than an ESG department that have 5 or 10 people 10 years ago or 5 years ago. A couple of people, I think, with the right tools and the right mindset in the next few years can drive a lot of improvements within companies. So that gives me hope, because I feel challenges of this nature usually produces stronger people and stronger industries. It weeds out a lot of the nonsense and the fluff and the pretenders, and it keeps a very strong core. Whoever is going to make it to the other side and the new crop of people that will get into this field are going to be far more effective than, ESG 0.1 or 0.15 or whatever version we were at, in the early 20s.
Really interesting. So technology as an empowering tool to be stronger. And I just have to evidence to that we've been using AI to figure out different ways to communicate sustainability to individuals with different values, perspectives, incentives.
Nope.
So definitely worth exploring. Obviously, AI has the other negative sides to it, but we could use it also for good. Thank you, Nawar, for being with us today. This is the last episode, so I actually just want to say a quick thank you as well to all those that are in the back and contributing to production of this episode. Anael, Jeff, Didi, thank you for all your help. And happy holidays to everyone. Thanks, Nawar. Great to talk to you.
Thanks, Maria. Happy holidays.
If today's episode sparked ideas for your team, visit ed4s.org. That's ed4s.org to explore our customizable corporate learning solutions or book a quick discovery call. You don't have to figure it out alone.